Hi, I'm Mario Guerra, the two-time former mayor of the great city of Downey, and I'm here today with my co-host, Eric Pierce, the editor of the Downey Patriot. And you're listening and you're watching Talking Downey with Mario
and Eric.
So welcome. We're excited to be here today at the Columbia Memorial Space Learning Center. We have two very special guests with us, and we're so grateful to have them. I'll introduce them. To my left here is Ben Dickow. He's the executive director. You're the
President and
executive director of the Columbia Memorial Space Center. Thank you for being here with us. And then the chairman of the board of the Columbia Memorial Space Center, also chairman of the board of Financial Partners Credit Union, one of our great institutions here in our city of Nader. Nader, welcome. We're glad you're here.
Thank you.
Nader, I always butcher your last name. That's why I didn't say it. Would you say your last name for me?
Moghaddam.
Moghaddam. I knew that. It's a 50-50 shot. I've known Nader for, well over 12, 13 years. First of all, gentlemen, thank you.
Yeah.
You guys are integral part of a very special place that we're sitting in right now. So Ben, tell us a little bit about the history of the Columbia Memorial Space Learning Center.
Of the Space Center. So we opened in 2009. We're pretty much the last bastion of what used to happen here on the site, right? This used to be a huge NASA facility. This is where all the Apollo spacecraft that went to the moon, all the space shuttles were designed and built. This is really sort of the standing legacy to that entire history. The culture and history of Downey is rich, especially in aerospace, and this is kind of the centerpiece of that. We opened in 2009. We've been, great guns ever since. We're a full-on space museum, hands-on STEM learning center. We do events, we have exhibits, and we do a ton of programming.
Okay. Ben, how does the Space Center operate? Because it's owned by the city of Downey,
Sure.
But there's a board.
Yep.
Can you talk about that and how it operates?
Sure. It's basically a partnership between two entities, with the city being the dominant force, right? So we are an arm of the city of Downey. I'm a city employee. All the staff here are. The building's maintained and secured by the city. But we do have a private 501c3 foundation that's attached to it that allows us to fundraise for programs and things like that. The city absolutely supports us as an operation, and then the foundation helps to do the fun stuff.
Got it.
So Nader, tell us a little bit about your involvement. You and I were talking a little bit earlier the first day you were here. And tell us how your involvement and how you're the chairman of the board.
Well, as a financial partners, which is basically got to start in the aerospace industry, a lot of folks who used to work here are members of financial partners. So that's really the connection that, the folks who worked here in the 60s and the 50s and 70s, 80s, 90s, they were all in many ways members of financial partners. So that's really the connection. And the first time I basically saw you and actually saw the center was at its opening back in 2009. And little did I know that how much it's going to become a labor of love and affection, and I think the connection not only between our members and of course all the great activities that happen here, but all the great learning that is occurring in the center and what it does for the community. So it's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah.
Nader, you mentioned the former workers. What's interesting to me is these retired former aerospace workers, how much pride they take in having you work here in Downey in the aerospace industry.
Right.
Have you guys come across that? Do you guys notice that? No?
Oh, absolutely. We regularly host luncheons for them, and we always get great attendance. Everyone who's still around still comes out here. Unfortunately, we've been hosting a lot of memorials also, because that whole generation is starting to move on. But they've been great supporters, and just the spoiler alert, I guess. The Inspiration mock-up, which we're going to be building a new building for, the lead of the rehab of that mock-up is being led by the lead team is a task force of retirees. So these are retired engineers from the site, most of them in their upper 80s, low 90s, early 90s. But they come out now once a month, and they're helping us think through how do you rehab a shuttle that's 50 years old. And these are the people who actually worked on the site. And I have to say, there's one thing that we're very prideful about here at the Space Center is that a lot of other science museums kind of focus on the missions or the astronauts, which are all great. But we really try to put the focus on the 35,000 people who actually worked right where we're sitting to make that stuff possible.
Right.
So Ben, tell us where we're at right now.
Mhm.
Special room.
This room.
This is part of the Challenger
Yep.
Learning Center
Yep.
and so forth. Tell our viewers a little bit about this and
Sure.
mission control. Where are we?
So you're in the spacecraft, which is one half of our Challenger Learning Center. Challenger Learning Centers it's a network of, there's about 40 of them around the world. We're the only one in Southern California. Let's see, our nearest neighbors are Phoenix, Arizona, and somewhere up in the Bay Area, right? So we serve probably the largest population. This is a fully immersive simulator program that includes a mission control simulator in this environment here. This is a spacecraft, so a group of students comes in, they play the role as astronauts, they follow NASA mission manuals, and they go on a 2-hour mission either to the moon or Mars for 2 hours, like I said, 2 hours, launch the splashdown, and then they're in constant contact with another team that's right on the other side of that wall that's in our mission control simulator. And they're also following the mission manuals and all that.
It was kind of cool because Dr. Mary Stoffer and her foundation used to sponsor so many of the kids
Yeah,
come here.
yeah, they
And I
still
think-
do.
Yeah, and I think that most fifth graders in LA
Every-
County come.
Every
here.
fifth grader in Downey Unified comes here.
Yeah, and so many other ones on it. By the way, something was really special. We were talking about it earlier. So the Challenger was kind of known as the educational mission, if you will, because the astronaut, Kristen McCall, the teacher. So the family of the Challenger wanted to make sure to continue on the teaching legacy.
Right.
That's how the Challenger Learning Center.
Exactly.
What was kind of cool is that we had Commander Strudy's wife came
Right.
to the dedication of where we're standing right now.
Right.
And she was telling us a story how he became an astronaut. And the interesting thing is, she said he entered an ad in the LA Times that was looking for astronauts. So this guy enters an ad and becomes the astronaut for a couple of jobs.
You know, That story is so great because, astronauts, they're government employees. So they have to go through all the same steps that any, civil servant has to do. It's
Yeah.
hilarious.
Yeah, we've had Buzz Aldrin here,
Yeah,
we've
oh,
had several on there.
Don't knock newspapers.
Oh,
Also,
that's right. Our editor of our favorite paper, the Downey Patriot, and the Norwalk Patriot. Here.
yeah. There you go.
So, go ahead.
No, I was going to ask, Ben, 2020, the pandemic came.
Yeah.
How did that affect the Space Center?
It affected us in a very positive way, I have to say. So here we are, we're at hands-on STEM Learning Center, right? We're going out and doing outreach programs, we see pre-pandemic, we were seeing about 100,000 visitors a year. It's a lot of people getting their hands on stuff. So we knew right away that was out. So like many people, we were trying to figure out what our options were. We took about 2 weeks to kind of catch our breath, and then we started to train ourselves up on how to do all of this stuff virtually online. And it was great. My staff is the greatest staff in the world, not just the city, but in the whole world. They took it upon themselves to just be experts at how do you do hands-on science learning in a virtual space. That first year, we ended up seeing 100,000 people. We didn't miss a beat as far as our visitorship goes and our engagement with our programs. This past year has been a little bit different because as schools pulled away from virtual, they also didn't do field trips again. So across the board, we're looking for the next year to be sort of the big year of return. But we're still maintaining some virtual programming. People can still book a virtual field trip, stuff like that. But yeah, it gave us all these new tools in our tool belt, and really galvanized the staff. I think we're probably closer coming out of the pandemic than we were even coming into it.
Interesting.
So Nader, as chairman, you've helped guide this through a lot of different times, and I know you guys have a great working relationship together on there, but you're part of the big vision here and so forth. Can you tell us a little bit about the vision? He touched on it in a minute, but as chairman, you said the reason too is because of the history of financial partners, 85,000 members, a lot of them have come from the aerospace, but you guys, financial partners, you've gotten into this and a lot stronger than most people have on there. So tell us a little bit about that, and then number two, and then the vision that you guys are working on.
To be honest with you, I might, it might sound like overexcitement, but it isn't. I really actually see Columbia Space Center as a wonderful foundational, showcase for this community. No other community in our neighboring areas has something like this. And true, we started in aerospace, but we're really a community, community organization. And what I love is, any community that basically, celebrates its history and takes that history and launches into the future, I think does really well. And I think that one thing which I believe is fundamental here is us knowing what happened here, great things that happened here, and then having our young kids in the community get inspired by it and the future leaders come out of it. So I'm really excited about it. It's a unique way of bringing the community together. It's a unique way to help STEM learning, encourage STEM learning, with the kids. And it's, I think, a way that this community can distinguish itself from many others by really celebrating this. And I want to give kudos to the city fathers and the city for being such a supporter of this, because at the time when you guys did this, I don't think people may have looked at the what the resource it might take to put something like this together, but in reality it's something that really separates this community from others. So I'm excited, we're excited, and I'm seeing great things coming out of it.
You know what? I'm sorry,
Please.
What impresses me, so this building, construction started in 08, opened in 09, and was it 12, 13 years later, the building itself still seems very modern.
Yeah.
It's not outdated at
Right.
all.
Right.
There's more coming. You guys mentioned the space shuttle inspiration. So is that going to be on display? Is that the plan?
Yeah.
To be actually on display?
Absolutely. It's not just on display, but you'll be able to go into it and interact with it. Spoiler alert again, there is another shuttle in the LA area. If you haven't heard.
It's not the first full scale mock-up.
That's right.
Ours is historical.
And you can get in ours.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah.
So we plan to lean into that heavily. So people can actually get enveloped and surrounded by this thing.
Yeah.
The beauty of our object too, of the inspiration, is that it really speaks to the process of STEM, what it takes, the creativity that human beings are able to sort of leverage and focus on something. Like it's an object that was used as a tool to get us into space, not just the sort of end all be all.
And the inspiration has its own Wikipedia page, which I love. So if you want to learn more about the inspiration, go to Wikipedia. There's a ton of information on there, which is kind of cool.
I was proud to help name that. Okay, so let me give a quick history here on this particular site. Like you said, this is historic. So in 1999, NASA leaves here, and there are 35,000 jobs that we lost in the city of Downey. Good, high-paying jobs. So it was a contaminated super fun site. So our city fathers, before me too, had to figure out what are we going to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
So for the longest time, we knew we had to clean it up, and that's one of the things we did. This is the most tested site in the history of mankind. I've seen all the reports, and I was part of it. So what
Thanks for telling me that. Now.
So yes, no, you're safe. Perfectly safe, brother. There's a lot of Kaiser patients and Kaiser doctors that have gone before you. So then we have this 160 acres, and we're trying to figure out what do we do with it. Okay, so we said, look, we wanted jobs. Okay, so we sold part of the land cheaper to Kaiser because it brought 4,000 high-paying jobs to the medical center. We wanted recreation, so hence the park, Discovery Sports Complex. We wanted some retail, and at the time Downey Landing, and then hence Promenade. We wanted some entertainment and so forth for our residents. Then we wanted to figure out a way to try to preserve those older buildings that were there, building 190, 290, and so forth. And so then we had a movie studio that came in and refurbished everything there and so forth. And it didn't quite make it because they wanted better use for the land. And so they cleaned it up. They were there for 5 years. They met all the legal obligations and more obligations. And for us, we thought it would be kind of cool to have a movie studio.
It was cool to kind of see, you could see them filming.
Yeah, the problem was a movie studio brings in all their food people, brings in everybody else. They're there in the cocoon, and they go home at night. So it didn't really do much for the rest. And on the movie, most people don't know that Spider-Man was filmed right here, Iron Man. It doesn't say in the bottom, made in Downey, okay? So then that transition. But the most important part, we wanted to make sure that our aerospace legacy and history, and to entice the next generation of astronauts, of STEM kids on there, would be preserved. Hence the Columbia Memorial Space Learning Center. And this was a big sacrifice for the city. The city paid for this building out of general fund. We funded it. Well, they're still funding it. I mean, we funded it for many years. That's where you and I met. I was the mayor. I was blessed to be the mayor when we opened this in 2009, and that's the first time I met Nader, and we were talking. You were here that day in a different capacity. So, and I know you were here that day too. So that became part of who we are as a city to have this here. So the legacy continued. We then have this, all of a sudden, when they had walked in away and we knew we had it covered up, we had the first full-scale mock-up of the space shuttle. So when NASA came in and checked this out, they're like, oh, this could work, right? So we own this. They left it down there for us and we own it. So now what do we do with it? It's made out of wood. You can't put it outside. And people say, oh, you got a real one, in downtown LA. But this is historic. The scalability there. We've had astronauts came in here when we didn't have display in the tent, look up, and Mark Kelly, when he came in here and he was the post-Columbia commander on it, he was just amazing that we had this. So it's really cool. City Council, and mostly Roger and I pushed for the name on there. Dr. Roger Bosler, school superintendent, assistant superintendent, myself, we were the space nuts, right, and so forth. So we really pushed for the name on there because it was inspiration. So hence we come now, fast forward, it's exciting to hear that there's this plan to have the kids come in and see that, to be inside of it, to continue to explore, to have here and there. So
and not just the kids either, because even as adults, I know I have a good time looking through it. And I remember Councilman David Gaffin, rest in peace. He would always emphasize the Space Center is not a museum.
Yeah,
it's not a museum. I think of the museum, you kind of go, you kind of look, you walk through whatever. This is a very interactive facility, which makes it really special.
Yeah.
It's interesting as we're talking about inspiration. I got to share a little story since we're having a fire chat here. As a matter of fact, one of our board meetings, one of my board members who's no longer with us, unfortunately, Earl Washington, he was telling a story about inspiration at the time when Rockwell was bidding for the project. The wooden mock-up that we have here today, the NASA folks, when they came to visit and they, inspected it, they actually were served lunch in the bay of that,
Sure.
And he said they were utterly amazed by the fact that they could actually sit and dine in the bay of this thing that was a replica of something that could be in space. And that was a very interesting story to hear. The other part of it is that as you're talking, so that's the beginning. But now what's interesting is that, as Ben always gets lights up when he talks about it, is that this is going to be a unique opportunity, as you mentioned, that kids can go inside and experience what might have been inside it, right? So that's, I think, it was something that created the living experience, but it's something that can continue the living experience of the shuttle program in a way.
Absolutely.
There's even a photo that the Downey Historical Society has a photo of Queen Elizabeth visiting, and I think the inspiration behind it.
She was inside. She climbed inside of the flight deck.
That's amazing. Okay, so here's another story. I thought this was really cool with the Boeing engineer. So when they finally came out and wanted to see the inspiration, this is, recently, like 15 years ago, right? When we had it covered under another tent.
Oh, got it.
So they wanted to come in and see it, and all of a sudden they look and they say, oh my God, you have an EVO. There's this big thing that I didn't know what it was, and a lot of people didn't know. It's these big giant balls, right? And they're all kind of attached. And I said, yeah, what is that? And they said, well, EVO, so when the space shuttles went up there, they had to figure out a way to get more fuel and more oxygen, right? So the EVO, I don't know, stands for Extended Vehicle Operations or something like that, right? And I go, so what does that do? He goes, well, that was used for fuel and, and oxygen. So, and he looked at it, he showed me a picture. So the only one, this is the only mock-up that exists, because they changed the design later.
It's the only one that exists.
Because the other one was on the Columbia,
exactly.
which of course 16 seconds from getting on our orbit perished. So I have a picture of that in my office out there, and yeah, it's kind of crazy, but we own that. We, along with that, and I'm sure you're going to be displaying.
Oh yeah, that'll be in there too. Yeah.
And it's just massive. It's just these big balls, and you're like, what the heck is this?
Right.
But we continue to learn. I love that I learned from those engineers. And I'll tell you, some of the Boeing and Rockwell people, they love this as much as you. And
it's the stories. I know, we went from the interview to sharing stories, but because everybody has a story from down the aerospace.
Of course. Yeah, and it's going to continue on there. So, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, speaking of that, so I grew up in Chicago, the Chicago area, and spaced net ever since I was a kid, and would just, especially in like first, second grade, just anything that I could get my hands on to look at pictures. And I absolutely remember reading about this site at the time because I was just, absorbing all that stuff. So it's a super thrill for me to be here. It's such a fantastic job, such a fantastic position. But just being able to walk here every day and know what the history was and know that it's something that, really inspired me to be an astronaut, but still to be in space.
And Ben has really taken the Space Center to another level because I remember, because the Space Center has gone through a couple of directors that I remember, and Ben isn't going to say this, but after Ben was hired, I feel that's when the Space Center really kind of took off. We're starting to see its potential.
I'll tell you, we had, that was one of the votes I regretted. We laugh about that. We were going to build a separate little building and to put that in. So I'm glad we did now after knowing what we're going to be doing. It's much better. But the vote was a 2-2 on the city council to pay for this building. And my concern, I was a swing vote, my concern was that we didn't have any programming, that we didn't have an executive director. It's like, we're just going to build this. What are we going to do with the whole thing? So I voted no. Only because I wanted, and I said we needed to get an executive director that's going to be able to manage and handle this and then set the vision for it. So I sat in on all the interviews for that, and I did have a say in Ben on there, not that I could have vetoed him, and I wouldn't have on there. But no, he was, you were very impressive, and I met the other candidates, but obviously that really paid off for the city because we hired the right person with the vision. Then later on, like I said, I was mayor in 2009 when we first met. But Nader's passion and vision and the history, and he continued to live to that, to become chairman of the board here, that you put in so much time. This is a really high-paying job, which I'm being sarcastic. It doesn't pay anything. It actually it costs him in financial partners because of his time. It's so valuable. But you do that in financial partners. I know the board, they're in the people there. They're so proud of what you do here, and they promote it and they make sure that give you that confidence to be able to do this. So now
it takes one to know one.
Yeah. So,
a board member also. So
absolutely.
We're blessed with Jack.
How long have you been on the board now? You started like 10 years.
I think it's about. It's probably.
You were here.
Was I here before?
You were here before I got on, so I've been here for almost 8 years. But you became board chair about 2 or so years later after.
But the wonderful thing is that the board's job, the foundation board's job, is really started now.
Right.
And with all the great plans that are coming right around the corner, with the wonderful support from Christina Garcia and the state funds that have come. And then Barbara Chuleta, absolutely, great friend. They've really provided us with another, platform to build from. And from this point on, I think it's going to be a lot of, connection with the business community to start getting more people involved in this, so that we can build this, ultimate home for inspiration, if you will. So I mean that's.
I think today kind of kicked off a little bit of a whisper campaign.
Right.
We're only teasing everybody a little bit on there. We'll have some plans later, but we want to make sure people that are listening that have that passion on their please make sure to call us here and contact us, and we'll work with that.
Absolutely.
Ben, we want to thank you for joining us today on Talking Down. We're excited to be here, and we're excited to have the Space Center in our city of Downey, and we're looking forward. We're excited for the future of what you do.
So am I.
And we thank you both. You guys make a great team. We love what you're doing.
He's the man.
So, we love it. Well, I'll tell you, some of the things, it's put us on the map in so many other ways. The city of STEM that you guys sponsor. Rocket Fever.
Right.
I know that Financial Partners is the main sponsor with them. So these are engagements. I mean, City of STEM, we have how many people here?
Over 12,000 people.
Over 1,000 people were just outside here, and they got to learn about the history and touch stem cell and everything else and all these different things that are there. I love that.
And just before we close out, I do have to say, like, this center is so much a part of Downey's history. It's supported by the city, but it is a regional. It's a regional, right?
Yeah.
We're pulling from all over Southeast LA, from Long Beach, from LA. City of STEM is an example of it. That is LA's science festival. That is, what we've got 10, 14 million people.
Right.
That is there, and that was all done here at the Space Center with the staff that's here. So I think that really shows the potential of a place like this, of a modestly sized STEM learning center.
Yeah. You know what? I'm sorry. I just remember one last story, which is really great. Okay, so the space shuttle when it was coming down. Right? So one of the things we reached out to Congresswoman Lucia Royal. It's always been a fan and supporter of the Space Center. So we reached out to her and says, listen, when that thing is being flying into LA, we'd like you to talk to NASA, and we contacted NASA too. We'd like it to do a flyover right here where it was first built and so forth. And they did.
Yeah.
They did. They gave us the route. And I remember we were so proud, so many of us all outside there looking out. It was emotional. It was kind of weird to think that it was emotional. But it did. It circled around. It flew over City Hall and circled on the way to LA. And it was one of those moments that were like, wow.
That was a great day.
It was a great day. So I had to add that because when you said regional, but we're on the history maps on there. I always tell people, look, I was the former mayor of the city that built the space shuttles and the Apollo capsules, and also the oldest McDonald's in the world. So we fed you to the moon and we fed you on the way. So folks, thanks for listening. We appreciate it. Thank you both. We're so proud of what you're doing. Stay tuned because there's going to be a lot more discussion on the Columbia Memorial Space Learning Center. We're so proud of it here in the city of Downey and our community. So thanks for listening on there, Talking Downey with Mario
and Derek.